Okay, good morning, and welcome to Sunday School this morning. I am your teacher for the morning. Let me get my things right here. I'm your teacher for this morning, Alonzo Richard Fleming Jr., and I want to thank everybody for joining us for Sunday School this morning. I'm going to get right into the lesson this morning because I'm not going to take too much of your time up. I know it's Super Bowl and everybody wants to get to their games and whatever they have to do to prepare. And so I'm not going to take too much of your time up this morning. So I'll get right into the lesson. This morning's lesson, brothers and sisters, I'll start off with basically making a claim. And that claim is that without a vision, the people perish. Our subject this morning in Sunday school is put up or shut up, the dead end Black Christian church. Put up or shut up, the dead end Black Christian church. And I know the possible controversy of this subject. I understand that the modern Christian church is a staple in the Black community. But during this Black History Month, one of the things that we should consider doing is examining the institutions and the effects of the institutions that influence our mind, the effect they have in our community. And so after doing that, over a number of years of my life and pondering the question, I have now been instructed to deliver this word. I want you to turn your Bibles to the 18th chapter of the book of, in the Bible, the book of 1 Kings, the 18th chapter. And we'll start our text at the 13th verse, and it's going to take me 2 classes to do this because it's just so much material and so much backup documentation that I want to show you that it's going to take 2 Sunday school classes to do this. But when we are finished with this lesson, we as a people will have a direction, a principle that we can function on in going in the direction that we want to go, and the freedom to choose without the threat over our heads from a powerless representation of the gods of our fathers. In the book of 1 Kings and the 18th chapter, starting at the 13th verse, and I'm going to read all the way down to the 40th verse to set us up for this morning's lesson. Was it not told, my Lord, what I did when Jezebel slew the prophets of the Lord? How I hid 100 men of the Lord's prophets by 50 in a cave, and fed them with bread and water. And now thou say, go, tell thy Lord, behold, Elijah is here, and he shall slay me. And Elijah said, as the Lord of hosts lives, before whom I stand, I will surely show myself unto him today. So Obadiah went to meet Ahab and told him, and Ahab went to meet Elijah. And it came to pass when Ahab saw Elijah, that Ahab said unto him, art thou he that's making trouble in Israel? And Elijah said, and he answered and said, I have not troubled Israel, but you and your father's house in that you have forsaken the commandments of the Lord and have followed Balaam. Now, before I read further, I want to say to you, brothers and sisters, that Balaam is a doctrine of a god, Baal. Balaam is the doctrine. So Elijah is saying that this king, this leader, this influencer, him and his house, that they are the ones with their doctrine of Balaam. They're the ones that are troubling the people. So verse 19, I just want to point out that Balaam is the doctrine. Now therefore send and gather to me all Israel unto Mount Carmel, and the prophets of Baal 450, and the prophets of the groves 400, which eat at Jezebel's table. So we pointed out, ladies and gentlemen, that the doctrine is Balaam. The god of the doctrine is Baal. Do you see the difference? One is the doctrine, the other is the god. So again, I'll read it again. Send and gather to me unto me all Israel unto the Mount Carmel, and the prophets of Baal, who is the god, 450, it was many of them, and the prophets of the groves 400, which eat at Jezebel's table. So there were 450 prophets of Baal, and then those who were of the groves of Baal, 400, and they all sit at Jezebel's table. I'll keep reading instead of explaining. So Ahab sent unto all the children of Israel and gathered the prophets together unto Mount Carmel. And Elijah came unto all the people and said, how long halt ye between two opinions? If the Lord be God, follow him. But if Baal be God, then follow him. And the people answered him not a word. They stayed quiet. Then said Elijah to the people, I, even I only, remain a prophet of the Lord, but Baal's prophets are 450 men. Let them therefore give us 2 bullocks, and let them choose 1 bullock for themselves, and cut it in pieces, and lay it on wood, and put no fire under it, and I will dress the other bullock, and lay it on wood, and I will put no fire under it. And you call on the name of your gods, and I will call on the name of the Lord. And the God that answers by fire, let him be God. And all the people answered and said, that's good. That's a well, it says well spoken. They say that's good because they see something here. They see a challenge here. They see a dividing place here where they can choose one or the other side. See, he started off by asking them, how long halt ye between 2 opinions? And so now the challenge is being set up. Verse 25, and Elijah said unto the prophets of Baal, choose you 1 bullock for yourselves and dress it first, for you are many. And call on the name of your God, but put no fire under it. And they took the bullock which was given them, and they dressed it, and they called on the name of Baal from morning even till noon, saying, O Baal, hear us. But there was no voice, nor any that answered. And they leaped upon the altar which was made, and it came to pass at noon that Elijah began to mock them and said, cry louder, for he is a God. Either he is talking, or he's pursuing, or he's on a journey, or maybe he's asleep. And you must awaken him. Verse 28, and they cried aloud and cut themselves after the manner with knives and with lances till the blood gushed out upon them. And it came to pass when midday was past, and they prophesied unto the time of the, in other words, they called on him and preached unto the time of the offering of the evening sacrifice, that there was neither voice nor any to answer, nor any that regarded. Then Elijah said unto the people, come near unto me. Come here. And all the people came near him. And he repaired the altar of the Lord that was broken down. And Elijah took 12 stones according to the number of the tribes of the sons of Jacob, unto whom the word of the Lord came, saying, Israel shall be thy name. And when the stones he built, with the stones he built an altar in the name of the Lord, and he made a trench about the altar as great as would contain 2 measures of seed. And he put the wood in order and cut the bullock in pieces, laid on him the wood, and said, fill 4 barrels with water, and pour it on the burnt sacrifice and onto the wood. And he said, do it a second time. And then they did it the second time. And he said, do it the third time. And they did it the third time. And the water ran round the altar, and he filled the trench also with water. And it came to pass that at the time of the offering of the evening sacrifice, that Elijah the prophet came near and said, O Lord of Abraham, Isaac, and of Israel, this people, let it be known this day that you are God in Israel, and that I am thy servant, and I alone have spoken these words. Hear me, O Lord, hear me, that this people may know that thou art the God, and that thou hast turned their hearts back to thee again. Then the fire of the Lord fell and consumed the burnt offering and the wood and the stones and the dust, and licked up the water that was in the trench. And when all the people saw it, they fell on their faces, and they said, the Lord, he is the God. He is our God. And Elijah said unto them, take the prophets of Baal, and let not one of them escape. And they took them, and Elijah brought them down to the brook of Kishon and slew them there. Our subject today is put up or shut up. The dead end Black Christian church. Now, I want to start off by pointing out a fact, several facts to get us going in this lesson. One of which is that a principle has to be understood here. And that principle is that without vision, the people are destroyed. It says in another place in the Bible that my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. That's found in Hosea chapter 4, verse 6. And I want to point out, as we talk about the dead end Black church this morning, that you will see when you speak in terms of vision, that vision gives you the ability to calculate and see and take the steps that's necessary to take towards whatever end it is you have. You have to have vision, or the ability to see. Now, if you do the math, brothers and sisters, you will see that the Black man and woman do not make it out the end of this century. You see, just the other day, President of the United States had his State of the Union speech, and I'm coming back to this, but I want to set you up so that you will understand the urgency of the matter. He did a State of the Union, and in that speech, he said 2 different things that maybe went by everybody. But see, when you got vision, you can see. We don't make it out of the century, black man. Using the method and thinking that we've been using, we don't make it out of the century. Do the math and you will see. Joe Biden said two things in his State of the Union address that you need to pay attention to. One, he said, I don't have to, many of us in here, we don't have to give our sons the talk. And we know what the talk is, but many white folk don't have to give their children the talk. What is the talk? The talk is how to prepare or how to prevent from being slain when stopped by a police officer or encountering a group of white people in public, or different scenarios that you may find yourself in. We have to give our sons the talk. And he said, we don't have to give our sons the talk. The second thing that Joe Biden said that you may have missed is that by 2040, the white population will be a minority in the country. And we all stood up and we cheered, and some of them cheered. But I'm here to share with you what he didn't say, brothers and sisters. And you know this by the idea that without vision, people perish. You know what I'm about to say was the undertones by the policy of the nation. It was said to the nation in the State of the Union, but it was spoken under the statement by 2040. The underlying statement that white people will be a minority in the country by the year 2040 is, unless we do something about this, the white people will be a minority in this country by 2040. Without a vision, you won't see it. You won't hear it. You won't know it. But if you look at another Bible verse that says, there is a way that seems right, but the end thereof is the way of death. And so if you have a certain way of thinking, and you notice that when you apply that way of thinking to your life, that you notice death on every hand, death in religion, death in school, death in society, death economically. There's a way that seems right, but the end of those ways are the ways of death. When you see death as a result of your thinking, you know that your thinking is the ways of death. So let's go back to our verses here. In this story, I'm not going to go into it so much. You need to read the whole story to get an idea. We know what a Jezebel is. You know, it's an insulting word used today. A Jezebel, a harlot, a whore. This particular situation, this harlot, this whore had power. And God was sending prophets to the people to address the problems among the people. He wasn't talking about individuals. God was talking about the entirety of the people. He sends the prophets to the people. It says in the Quran that every nation, God sends messengers to that people, telling them to stay away from idols. This is a fact. Jesus came to his people to save his people from their sin. God sends messengers to every people in order to help them correct their course that they are traveling on. And he can correct it because he can point out easily look, this is the way you've been thinking, and here are the results, the clear results in the way that you have been thinking. It's time for a course correction. God sends prophets to every people. And when you think that God does not send you a prophet, that he doesn't send you messengers, you are sadly mistaken, and you have shortchanged God and the power of God. He sends messengers to every people. Here in this story, you had Jezebel had the power, and the prophets was coming because God was sending the prophets, and she wanted them to remain up under the power of Baal and Balaam, the doctrine of Balaam. And so when the prophets came, she had them killed. And as the prophets were killed, the Martin Luther Kings, the Malcolm X, the Elijah Muhammad's, the Noble Drew Ali's, as they were killed and dismantled and marginalized and slaughtered, the prophets of Baal flourished as the prophets that was representing a new way of thinking were killed. And so Jezebel, because of the environment that she enjoyed living in, because she benefited from that, she had them killed in order to marginalize, minimize, and silence the prophets that God had sent to the people. So now we're down to just one prophet, and he comes to to King Ahab. And so King Ahab looks at Elijah and says, oh, you're the one that's been running around here troubling the people, stirring them up with this doctrine, talking about Baal is a fake god, that he's a counterfeit. You're the one that's doing all that troubling of the people. And Elijah said, no, I'm not the one troubling the people. Yes, we both agree that the people are in trouble, but I'm not the one troubling them. You see, because there are many of your prophets that you have propped up, many of your preachers that you have propped up, and that the people have been listening to them. And if we look at the condition of the people, we can reasonably suggest that the condition is the children of their teaching, whom you have propped up. And I'm the only one left saying anything different than what the prophets of Baal are saying. And the prophets of Baal had free reign in the country. They were able to go here and go there. They were well respected. When one of the children of Israel was killed by the police, the prophets of Baal was dragged out and told to tell the people to respond with peace. The prophets of Baal benefited from being organized up under the organizational structure of the philosophy that was guiding. And so when the threshold of pain had been met by the people, meaning that they could no longer stomach the results that they were getting from listening to the prophets of Baal, and after seeing that the Jezebel and the king Ahab had killed all the ones who brought them a message that they actually listened to, the threshold of pain had been reached, and now, even though there was only one left, he could speak. And they would listen. And so here's the situation. He said, no, I'm not the one troubling Israel. You're the one troubling Israel with the prophets of Baal. And there are many. They are everywhere. And so let's put up or shut up. Let's determine two things: who's troubling them and who has the solution to the trouble. So what we're going to do is put together a challenge. And we're going to do this challenge in front of all the people so that everybody can see and that no man would be left in the dark and saying, oh no. We're going to make a challenge and put all of this stuff on the same stage and let it be known by all the people. Now, I got to go back to something, brothers and sisters. I got to go back to something and still set this up. I really need to lay this foundation. You know, I'm trying my best to just do stuff in one session because I just want to get it done. But I'm being prompted to know you go back and you lay this foundation as I have given it to you. Put up or shut up the dead end black Christian church. What is a dead end? A dead end, brothers and sisters, is a street that does not go through. You can go only so far on that street. It will only carry you so far, and they call it a dead end because you can't go anywhere else. You can't go any further on that street. So if you imagine a street that you are traveling on and you look down there and you see, wait a minute, I can't get out if I go on this street. This street stops at this particular point. They call that a dead end street. So I'm talking about this philosophy, this doctrine, this idea of God and how God relates to you as a dead end street as given to us. So you have to ask some questions to first start off understanding, well, Brother Fleming, why would you call Christianity a dead end street? I'm not calling the teachings of Jesus a dead end street. The teachings of Jesus is the same as any teacher that is sent to a people. It has at its root the universal principles which can give the universal experience to all of humanity. But when you come to terms, brothers and sisters, with how we got Christianity, you will understand how I can say that the doctrine that it permeates the black community is on a dead end street. I'm reminded of a story that Jesus told in the Bible about he took up an offering, and the boy that gave the offering, there were like 4,000 or 5,000 people there, and they were hungry. They were listening to him, and they were hungry. And so he said, well, listen, sit them all down, and we're going to see if anybody got anything to feed on. So only one individual out of the whole crowd had something to give. It was a boy who had fish and bread. And so Jesus picked up the offering, and they passed the basket up to Jesus, like you do in your church. And Jesus blessed the offering like you do in your church. But unlike you do in your church, the offering was immediately passed back, and all the baskets were filled, and every man was able to get out what he needed out of that basket. When's the last time that has happened to you? Where the basket came around one time empty and the next time filled, and you were able to take out what you needed. This was the offering that Jesus Christ took up. And then after everybody had their fill, because there was abundance in it, they took up 12 baskets still filled. Each of the disciples had a basket filled with fish and bread. And Jesus took the opportunity to teach them a lesson about doctrine. He said, beware of the doctrine of the scribes and Pharisees. Beware of the leaven of the preachers. Beware of this thinking that they give into you. And they're looking around because the disciples don't understand. Well, wait a minute, what's going on? And Jesus starts to do a math problem. He said, how many baskets did you take up? He said, 12. And were they not all filled? How many baskets one person gave to the offering? Only one. And how many baskets did you take up? After everybody got their fill, how many baskets were you able to take up? 12. Each one of the disciples had a basket. He said, well, then why don't you understand when I say beware of the leaven of the scribes and the Pharisees? Why don't you understand this? You are the ones who are going to be teaching the people. And look what's in your hand. I want you to think, people. Look what's in your hand, Peter. Look what's in your hand, John. Look what's in your hand, Matthew. Why don't you understand when I say beware of the leaven of the scribes and the Pharisees? You're going to be the ones teaching the people, and you're going to teach what was passed on from where they got it, from what your teacher gave it to you. He's going to pass it on to you, and it's going to proliferate. Beware of the doctrine of the scribes and the Pharisees. He didn't say beware of the scribes and the Pharisees. He said the doctrine of the scribes and the Pharisees. The scribes and the Pharisees and the Essenes and all of them were the preachers of Jesus' day. So I'm saying what everybody in the black community is thinking but scared to say. Brothers and sisters, at the beginning of time and space and the material manifestation, God made man. And he made this man male and female. The components of man is male and female. He created them at the same time, and he told them to dominate and create together. And the reason why they had to dominate and create together is because of a guiding principle which he gave to each of those energies, male and female. The male would serve as the source of knowledge, and the female would serve as the source of wisdom. And together, as one thought, the male and the female exercise the power of God through creation. And when the process is distorted, chaos is observed through the distortion, or you get no creation. I'm going somewhere with this. Stay with me. It says that my people are destroyed for a lack of knowledge. A lack of knowledge. He gave knowledge to the male. And the male's job is to impregnate the female, and with her wisdom, she produces a world. This is the process. The male has the knowledge, the female has the wisdom, but the wisdom is used to take that knowledge and produce a world according to the knowledge. My people are destroyed for a lack of knowledge, says the Bible in Hosea. How is it that you can get a lack of knowledge? In that verse, the prophet is not talking about individuals. He's talking about a people, a group, his people. And notice further that he's not talking about everybody on the planet. His discussion is about his own people and their thinking and their condition as a people. When a people have strayed away or have been led from the knowledge of itself, Two things a messenger that comes must understand: what is the idol that the people are using, and how to release them from the idol. Now, in case you don't understand how this destruction comes from a lack of knowledge, there is a story about the Tower of Babel that will help you to understand this right in the Bible. In the Bible, the Tower of Babel story goes along the lines as this: the people were of one mind and one purpose. And this entity said, wait a minute, they are of one mind and of one purpose. And they're going to do what they have set out to do. They're going to build the world that they have set out to build because they are united. And unless we do something, go back to Joe Biden. Unless we do something, they are going to accomplish what they have set to do. We need to go down and confuse them. We need to confuse and confound them by their language. How do we confound their language? We give this one this doctrine, this one that doctrine, this one this philosophy, that one that philosophy, so they won't be able to talk to each other. But we still can talk to each other because we know what the purpose of all this divisive language is. And I know you've been taught that that is God confusing you. That was God confusing the people to keep them from building a tower. But I'm here to tell you, brothers and sisters, that God is not the author of confusion. God is the author of peace. And peace is when you are of one mind and of one spirit. God is not the author of confusion. So who the hell is that confusing folk? You're not destroyed for a lack of religion. You're not destroyed for a lack of money. You're not destroyed for a lack of church or food or cars. These things, some of these things are necessary to bring comfort to us on this material plane of existence. But the prophet in that verse that I just pointed out was talking to his people and showing them that their death that they were experiencing was coming from their own thinking. And that the prophets was pointing to them, it's somebody else's fault. You see. But in the scripture, it says that they're destroyed for lack of knowledge because you don't have your male. And if you have your male, you're so hard-headed, you won't listen to him. And thinking that you are a man all by yourself, having both wisdom and knowledge as self-contained. Death inward, death outward. And within everything they do, when you see this phenomenon of death permeating your environment, know that there is something about your thinking that needs to be corrected. So the people die for the cause of lack. And the knowledge is the enemy. They literally fight to preserve the environment of lacking knowledge among themselves. And so now I want to take you back. I'm using the Bible on Sunday so you can understand, because that's what you trust. If you go back to the Old Testament, in the book of Exodus, under the metaphor or the illustration of the greatest power being Egypt, this is really what it's illustrating. The greatest power is what the children of Israel were under. It's not Egypt as a nation per se, but it's illustrating to you, it's an allegory of the greatest power on earth. And this is how God is going to deal with his people and with the greatest power on earth. If you go back to that story where the children of Israel, before he sent Moses as a messenger to them. Pharaoh said to his people, come on. This is Exodus 1, chapter 1. You can read it for yourself. Pharaoh said to his people, come on, let us deal wisely with them, lest they multiply, and it come to pass that when there falls out any war, they join unto our enemies and fight against us, and so get them up out of the land, kill the boys, and save the girls alive. I want you to think with me for a moment. Think with me here. He said to his people, Pharaoh did. He didn't tell this to the Israel or the Hebrews. He said to his people, come on, we got to deal wisely with them because we have put them through hell. And we know that if somebody did us like we're doing them, payback has got to come. So if our payback come in the form of an enemy, they gonna think about what we have done to them. They're already multiplying. And when this war falls out, they're gonna side with the enemy because in their mind, they're thinking about all the hell we done put them through. And they're going to pay us back. So we got to deal wisely with them. What are we going to do to deal wisely with them? You got to remember, when you're dealing wisely, the principle holds here that male and female, the male concocts the idea or the creation of the world and impregnate the female, and the female produce the world that he wants produced. So when you hear Pharaoh dealing wisely, do not be bamboozled, brothers and sisters, and think it's just men. Because the principle applies. Now, we said we're going to use this process to do this. We're going to kill the boys and we're going to save the girls alive. And why this process, I want to ask you. Why this process that Pharaoh used? What was destroying the boys and saving the females? What happens when you do that? What goes on? See, if you hold the process, you will see it. The process is Genesis chapter 1:27. He made them together. He told them, I know you think that rib stuff is what's true. Baby, that's an imposter. That's a slave-making process there. In the beginning, he made them together, male and female. He made man, male and female. This is what I've been told to teach. And we're not talking about some period stuff that you a female and I'm a female and you a male and we all this stuff. I have nothing to say about that. I'm telling you what was made in the beginning, male and female. He told them to dominate. He gave the male knowledge and the female wisdom. And creation of a nation can only come, like the creation of anything can only come when the male and the female energies combine and impregnate the female with a world, and that world is born 9 months later. So why this process of killing the male that Pharaoh had and saving the female? There are several reasons why this is necessary in the case. See, you don't know your own power. You don't know who you are. You have not come to terms with the fact that you are greater than he that's in the world. You just don't know it because you haven't looked within. So on the great spiritual plane of life, there's one law. And this one law is the law of love. And I know it seems like I'm bouncing all over the place, but brothers and sisters, I'm not. I'm talking the same thing. You just got to put it all together. It's there. The law of love, and from this great law flows all the united rules that govern your life and all your manifestations. But if you are ignorant of the great spiritual plane and the great law, or are blocked from it through distorted thinking, your access and communication are blocked because your mind has been moved into your body, and you reject your true self. See, your mind is in your body. You're walking in the flesh, as the Bible talks about in one scripture. It means your mind is in your body, and you think that it is your body that controls your mind. You have surrendered the power of yourself to the body. This was done by Willie Lynch to make you think that you are body first and mind is just a side note. It was done in the Garden of Eden when he marched the animals by Adam to make Adam believe that he was of the flesh. And as soon as Adam said, there is no partner for me, boom, he put him to sleep. And he never woke him up. And when he put him to sleep, he separated the male from the female, took the female off and taught her something else, and then brought her back to Adam. And now Adam, the male, is thinking of himself in terms of the flesh. He's walking in the flesh. And that's why he said, this is bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh, because he's walking in the flesh. He's left the spirit. And if you walk in the flesh, you shall die. If you think of yourself as a body first, ye shall die. And this is why he was able to say, the day you eat this fruit, ye shall die. So Pharaoh and Willie Lynch used the same process. In Willie Lynch, he said, save the body and destroy the mind. In Willie Lynch, he said, save the female, castrate the male. And here in this particular scripture, the Pharaoh says to kill the boys and save the girls alive. Why is this process so important? Your access and communication has been blocked, brothers and sisters, to yourself. You have put your body into your mind into your body, and it has distorted the universal communication, which is an eternal property of mind. And that universal communication is the communication with your Creator, with your God. And you have been cut off from him, not by him, but by the way you're trying to communicate through the body. And so you are kept in this idea of sin, sickness, and death through the body. And as a result, you are warring against knowledge. So now the Pharaoh, he had to destroy the male because he wanted to insert his world or build his world through the female of the Hebrews. So he knocks off the male. He imprisons the male. He embarrasses the male. He kills the male in public. He castrates him and strips him naked if he has the audacity to even bother to look at a history of himself. He puts him out in front of everybody and strips him butt naked so the women will disrespect him and the men will shake in fear. What Willie Lynch did. And then he, at the same time, educates the female. He makes her doctor. He makes her master. He makes her bachelor. He makes her feel like she's the one that stands next to him on the stage. She makes her vice president. Not knowing the plan, she falls into this idea, and while the male is shaking in his boots, he's scared to speak out. He's scared to even look for himself because of what could happen. And so Pharaoh makes war against the male. So the female is left without knowledge. But she thinks she got knowledge, and so she keeps producing more of the same. Men without knowledge. So he props up by saying, you're the first. You're the only one. And so, see, the male that's left, they're the only ones. I'm the first black this. I'm the first black that. And so he's pointed to as the leader. He's pointed to as the one that's telling you about God. And so they prop up these churches. Why is it, brother, that you can't buy a business or build a business in the black community, say a gas station, but the banks will loan a preacher multi-million dollars to build a church in the hood? And the hood is always filled with drugs, alcohol, and churches. Why is that the case? Why is it the case, black man, that every time a cop shoots your child, that a preacher is dragged out and they stand up and they go get to the parents first before anybody else can and tell the parents to say, now you all be peaceful. Your child just has been murdered and you out there talking about peace and it's always a mother. Why can't they bring peace before the damn bullet is shot? Why is it always you bringing peace to Pharaoh? You need to think about this. In this story, when Moses came to the children of Israel, Moses started getting the children of Israel talking because he was talking about freedom and escaping from Pharaoh's clutches. And so their work to keep Pharaoh's house built was diminishing. And so Pharaoh gathered the preachers. You got to listen and read it. It's in Exodus. He gathered his hand-picked preachers and brought them in, and the Bible say he beat them. And he said, what's up with my Negroes? Why ain't they working? And they said, because Moses is running around here talking about freedom. That's why they're not working. But notice who he brought in and notice who he beat. He beat the ones that he set over the people who were of the people. And Moses decided to abandon them. So you got a situation in all of the hoods in the community, across the nation, without exception. Crime, drugs, dilapidation, alcohol, and churches. They're next to each other. They're on each corner on the same block. They're now in houses everywhere. They're everywhere. And the doctrine is spewed out every Sunday in the black community. And the black community is wallowing in despair. The black community has no direction. The children are hurting. Nobody is helping our babies with this effect from COVID. There's no program being talked about on a massive scale about our babies and the psychological effect of COVID. But they're collecting money and they won't even so much as put it in a black bank. And they invest that money in these white banks, and these white banks take that black money and go build Arab communities, Indian communities, Italian communities off of your money. And when you got something to say, they said Jesus is coming soon and he gonna fix it all, and that's where you gonna have to go. Put up or shut up. It's a dead-end street. There is no outlet because it was given to you by Pharaoh. Now you may say, my brother Fleming, and I'm gonna have to wind this up. I knew it was gonna take me 2 lessons to do this. You may say, brother Fleming, well, wait a minute. The church was the staple of the community at one time. I say, yes, it was. The church was the community at one time. Now it's a big business. It's a family-owned operation. And it's a family-owned operation, not because of the people wanted to do that. The Pharaoh saw it and said, let us deal wisely. These people are gaining independence through their religious organizations. So we got to get in there and manipulate them and soften and weaken and water down their doctrine so they won't be talking about what Moses is talking about. Every time a black man came among us, ladies and gentlemen, that had power, you take Elijah Muhammad of the Muslims, you take Noble Drew Ali, you take Marcus Garvey, who was a Christian. Every time somebody came with a message of independence and doing what yourself need to do for self, like Adam and Eve did when their eyes were open, the first thing they did was when they built clothes for themselves. They went and put clothes on themselves. Because prior to that, they were naked and not ashamed. When they should have been ashamed, when they saw all of humanity living and thriving, and they're working in this garden naked. You need to tune in next week, because I guess I just laid the foundation. I laid the foundation this week. And I'm going to get to the meat on next week. Because I got to get back to the story of the scripture that we read and what happened and what's on the horizon for us. You think that these balloons floating across this country and being shot down by military airplanes is just a coincidence? Oh, by the way, situation? Do you think that? Is that what you're thinking? Do you think this war in Ukraine is just oh, by the way, another war? Is that what you thinking, black man? You better wake up and listen.